better keep your videos on. If there is no problem with network, better keep your videos on. Okay, we'll start with the chanting. Satya Vibhanga Sutta. There is one sutra called Satya Vibhanga Sutta that we will chant, and then we'll take up one very important discourse. So about the discourse and what is its importance, we will see later. Now we'll start with the chanting. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Iti piso bhagavaraham samma sambuddho vidyacharana sampanno sugato lokavidu anuttaro purisadamma sarati satta deva manusanang buddho bhagavati namo tassa samma sambuddhassa. Echa buddha atita cha echa buddha anagata pachuppanna cha ye buddha ahang vandami sabbada natti me saranang anyang buddho me saranang varang yetena satya vajjena hotu me jayamangalam uttamangena vandehang padapangso varuttamang buddheyo kalito doso buddho kamatutang mama buddhang yava nibbana pariyantang saranang gacchami. स्वाकातो भगवता धम्मो संदिटिको अकालिको एहि पस्सिको अपनायको पच्छत्तं वेदितव्यो विन्नोहीति नमो तस्सनियानिक सदम्मसा ये च धम्मा अतीता च ये च धम्मा अनागता पच्चुपन्ना च ये धम्मा अहं वन्दामि सब्बदा नत्ति मे शरणं अन्यं धम्मो मे शरणं वरं ये तेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु मे जयमङ्गलम् उत्तमंगेन वंदेहं धम्मं चति विदुत्तमं धम्मेयो कलितो दोषो धम्मो कमतुतं मम धम्मं यावनिब्बानपर्यन्तं शरणं गच्छामि. सुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो उजुपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो न्यायपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो सामीचिपटिपन्नो भगवतो सावक संगो यदिदं चत्तारि पुरिसयुगानि अट्टपुरिसपुग्गल एषा भगवतो सावक संगो आहुनेयो पाहुनेयो दक्खिनेयो अंजलिकरणीयो अनुत्तरं पुण्यखेतं लोकस्साति नमो तस्स अट्ट अर्य पुग्गला महासंगसा ये च संगा अतीता च ये च संगा अनागता पच्चुपन्ना च ये संगा अहं वन्दामि सब्बदा नत्ति मे शरणं अन्यं संघो मे शरणं वरं ये तेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु मे जयमङ्गलम् उत्तमंगेन वन्देहं संगं चति विदुत्तमम् संगेयो कलितो दोषो संगो कमतुतं मम संगं यावनिब्बान पर्यन्तं शरणं गच्छामि. विपत्ति पटिवाहाय सब्ब संपत्ति सिद्धिया सब्ब दुःखं विनाशाय सब्ब भयं विनाशाय सब्ब रोगं विनाशाय भवेदीर्घायुकदायक सब्ब लोकं हितत्थाय परित्तं तं बनामहे समन्ता चक्रवालेषु अत्र गच्छन्तु देवता सद्धम्मं मुनिराजस्सा सुनन्तु सग्गमोक्कदं धम्मस्सवन कालो अयं वदन्तः धम्मस्सवन कालो अयं वदन्तः परित्तस्सवन कालो अयं वदन्तः नमो तस्स भगवतो अरहतो सम्मा सम्बुद्धस्सा एवं मे सुतं एकं समयं भगवा वाराणस्यं विहरति इति पठने मिगधाये तत्र को भगवा भिक्खु अमन्तेसि भिक्खवोति वदन्तेति ते भिक्खु भगवतो पच्चसोऽसु भगवाये तदवोचा तथागतेन भिक्खवे अरहता सम्मा सम्बुद्धेन वाराणस्यं इति पठने मिगधाये अनुत्तरं धम्मचक्रं पवत्तितं अपटिवत्तियं समणेन वा ब्रह्मणेन वा देवेन वा मारेण वा ब्रह्मणा वा केनचिवा लोकस्मिन् इदिदं चतुन्नं अर्यसच्चानं आचिक्कणादेशना पन्यापना पट्टापना विवरणा विभजना उत्तानि कम्मं कतमे संचतुन्नं दुःखस्य अर्यसच्चस्य आचिक्कणादेशना पन्यापना पट्टापना विवरणा विभजना उत्तानि कम्मं दुःख समुदयस्य अर्यसच्चस्य आचिक्कणादेशना पन्यापना पट्टापना विवरणा विभजना उत्तानि कम्मं दुःख निरोधस्य अर्यसच्चस्य आचिक्कणादेशना पन्यापना पट्टापना विवरणा विभजना उत्तानि कम्मं दुःख निरोधगामिनी या पटिपदाया आर्य सच्चस्य आचिक्कणा देशना पन्यापना पट्टापना विवरणा विभजना उत्तानिकं तथागतेन भिक्खवे अरहता सम्मा सम्बुद्धेन वाराणसीयं गिसिपटाने मिगदाये अनुत्तरं धम्मचक्रं पवत्तिटं अप्पटिवत्तियं समणेन वा ब्राह्मणेन वा देवेन वा मारेण वा ब्रह्मणा वा केन चिवालोकस्मिन् यदिदं इमे संचतुन्नं अर्य सच्चानं आचिक्कणा देशना पन्यापना पट्टापना विवरणा विभजना उत्तानिकं सेवता भिक्कवे सारिपुत्त मोग्गलाने भजता भिक्कवे सारिपुत्त मोग्गलाने पंडिता भिक्खु अनुग्राहका सब्रह्मचारिणं संयतापि भिक्कवे जनेता एवं सारिपुत्तो संयतापि जातस्स आपादेत एवं मोग्गलानो सारिपुत्तो भिक्कवे स्वतापत्ति फले विनेति मोग्गलानो उत्तमत्ते सारिपुत्तो भिक्कवे पहोति चत्तारि अर्य सच्चानि वित्तारेण आचिक्कितं देशे तुं पन्यापेतुं पटापेतुं विवरितं विभजितुं उत्तानि कातुन्ति इदमवोच भगवा इदं वत्वेन सुगतो उत्तायासना विहारं पाविसि तत्र को आयस्मा सारिपुत्तो अचरिपत्कन्तस्य भगवतो भिक्खु आमन्तेसि आहुसो भिक्खवेति आहुसोति कोते भिक्खु आयस्मतो सारिपुत्तस्य पच्चसोऽसुं आयस्मा सारिपुत्तो एतदवोच तथागतेन आहुसो अरहता सम्मा सम्बुद्धेन वाराणसीयं गिसिपटाने मिगदाये अनुत्तरं धम्मचक्रं पवत्तिटं अप्पटिवत्तियं समणेन वा ब्राह्मणेन वा देवेन वा मारेण वा ब्रह्मणा वा केन चिवालोकस्मिन् यदिदं चतुन्दं अर्यसच्चानं आचिक्कणा देशना पन्यापना पट्टापना विवरणा विभजना उत्तानिकं कतमे संचतुन्दं दुःखस्य अर्यसच्चस्य आचिक्कणा देशना पन्यापना पट्टापना विवरणा विभजना उत्तानिकं दुःख समुदयस्य अर्यसच्चस्य आचिक्कणा देशना पन्यापना पट्टापना विवरणा विभजना उत्तानिकं दुःख निरोधस्य अर्यसच्चस्य आचिक्कणा देशना पन्यापना पट्टापना विवरणा विभजना उत्तानिकं दुःख निरोधगामिनी या पटिपदाया अर्यसच्चस्य आचिक्कणा देशना पन्यापना पट्टापना विवरणा विभजना उत्तानिकं कतमं चावुसो दुःखं अर्यसच्चं जातिपि दुःख जरापि दुःख मरणंपि दुःखं शोक परिदेव दुःख दोमन सुपायासापि दुःख यंपिच्छं नालवति तंपि दुःखं संकिट्टेन पंचुपादान कंद दुःख कतमा चावुसो जाति याते संते सं सत्तानं तं हि सत्तनिकाये जाति संजाति वक्कन्ति अभिनिबत्ति कंदानां पातु भावो आयतनानां परिलाभो आयंगुच्चतावुसो जाति कतमा चावुसो जरा याते संते सं सत्तानं तं हि सत्तनिकाये जरा जीर्णता खंडिच्छं पालिच्छं वरित्तचता आयुनो संहानि इंद्रियाणां परिपाको यं उच्चतावुसो जरा कतमंचावुसो मरणं ये याते संते सं सत्तानं तंह सत्तनिकाया च्युति चवणता भेदो अंतरधानं मच्चुमरणं कालंकिरिया कंदानं भेदो कलयवरस्य निक्केपो जीवितेन्द्रियस् उपच्छेदो इदं उच्चतावुसो मरणं कतमा चावुसो शोको योको आहुसो अन्यतरेण व्यसनेन समना समन्यागतस्य अन्यतरेण दुःखदम्मेन पुत्तस्य शोको शोचना शोचित्तं अंतो शोको अंतो परिशोको अयं उच्चतावुसो शोको कतमो चावुसो परिदेवो योको आहुसो अन्यतरेण व्यसनेन समन्यागतस्य अन्यतरेण दुःखदम्मेन पुत्तस्य आदेवो परिदेवो आदेवना परिदेवना आदेविता आदेवि तत्तं परिदेवि तत्तं अयं उच्चतावुसो परिदेवो कतमं चावुसो दुःखं यंको आहुसो कायिकं दुःखं कायिकं असातं काय संपस्सजं दुःखं असातं वेदयितं इदं उच्चतावुसो दुःखं कतमं चावुसो दोमनस्सं यंको आहुसो चेतसिकं दुःखं चेतसिकं असातं मनो संपस्सजं दुःखं असातं वेदयितं इदं उच्चतावुसो दोमनस्सं कतमो चावुसो उपायासो योको आहुसो अन्यतरेण व्यसनेन समन्यागतस्य अन्यतरेण दुःखदम्मेन पुत्तस्य आयासो उपायासो आयासि तत्तं उपायासि तत्तं अयं उच्चतावुसो उपायासो कतमं चावुसो यं पिच्छं नालवति तंपि दुःखं जातिदम्मानां गावुसो सत्तानां एवं इच्छा उपपद्यति अहोवतमयं ना जातिदम्मा अस्सामा नाचावता नो जाति आगच्छय्याति नो अकोत्पन्ने तं इच्छाय पत्तब्बं इदंपि यंपिच्छं नालवति तंपि दुःखं जरादम्मानां गावुसो सत्तानां एवं इच्छा उपपद्यति अहोवतामयं ना जारि जरादम्मा अस्सामा नचावता नो जरा अगच्छय्याति नकोपनेतं इच्छाय पत्तब्बं इदंपि यंपिच्छं नालवति तंपि दुःखं व्याधिदम्मानां गावुसो सत्तानां एवं इच्छा उपपद्यति अहोवतामयं ना व्याधिदम्मा अस्सामा नचावता नो व्याधि अगच्छय्याति नकोपनेतं इच्छाय पत्तब्बं इदंपि यंपिच्छं नालभति तंपि दुःखं मरणदम्मानां गावुसो सत्तानां एवं इच्छा उपपद्यति अहोवतमयं न मरणधम्मा अस्सामा न चावतानो मरणं आगच्छेयाति न कोपणेतं इच्छाय पट्टभं इदंपि अंपिच्छं न लभति तंपि दुःखं शोक परिदेव दुःख दोमनसुपाय सदम्मानां हौसो सत्तानां एवं इच्छा उपपद्यति अहोवतमयं न शोक परिदेव दुःख दोमनसुपाय सदम्मा अस्सामा न चावतनो शोक परिदेव दुःख दोमनसुपाय सागच्छेयुन्ति न कोपणेतं इच्छाय पट्टभं इदंपि अंपिच्छं न लभति तंपि दुःखं कतमे चावुसो संकिट्टेन पंचुपादान कंद दुःख संयति दंग रूप उपादान कंदो वेदना उपादान कंदो संयुपादान कंदो संकार उपादान कंदो विज्ञान उपादान कंदो इमे उच्चतावुसो संकिट्टेन पंचुपादान कंद दुःख इदं उच्चतावुसो दुःखं गर्य सत्यं गतमं चावुसो दुःख समुदयं गर्य सत्यं यायं तणः पोनोभविका नंदिराग सहगता तत्र तत्राभिनंदिनी संयति दंग कामतणः भवतणः विभवतणः इदं उच्चतावुसो दुःख समुदयं गर्य सत्यं कतमं चावुसो दुःख निरोधं गर्य सत्यं यो तस्साय वतणहाय अशेष विराग निरोधो छागो पठिन सग्गो मुक्तियनालयो इदं उच्चतावुसो दुःख निरोधं गर्य सत्यं कतमं चावुसो दुःख निरोधगामिनी पटिपदा आर्य सत्यं अयमेव अर्यो अट्टंगिको मग्गो संयतिदं सम्मादिट्टि सम्मा संकप्पो सम्मा वाचा सम्मा कम्मन्तो सम्मा आजीवो सम्मा वायामो सम्मा सति सम्मा समाधि कतमा चावुसो सम्मादिट्टि यंको आवुसो दुःखे ज्ञानं दुःख समुदये ज्ञानं दुःख निरोधे ज्ञानं दुःख निरोधगामिनी या पटिपदाय ज्ञानं अयं उच्चतावुसो सम्मादिट्टि कतमो चावुसो सम्मा संकप्पो नेक्कम संकप्पो अभ्यापाद संकप्पो अविहिंसा संकप्पो अयं उच्चतावुसो सम्मा संकप्पो कतमा चावुसो सम्मा वाचा मूसावाद वीरमणि पिसुणाय वाचाय वीरमणि परुषाय वाचाय वीरमणि संपप्पलापा वीरमणि अयं उच्चतावुसो सम्मा वाचा कतमो चावुसो सम्मा कम्मन्ति फाणातिपात वीरमणि अदिन्नादान वीरमणि कामेश मिथ्याचार वीरमणि अयं उच्चतावुसो सम्मा कम्मन्तो कतमो चावुसो सम्मा आजीवो इदावुसो अर्यसावको मिथ्या आजीवं पहाय सम्मा आजीवेन जीविकं कप्पेति अयं उच्चतावुसो सम्मा आजीवो कतमो चावुसो सम्मा वायामो इदावुसो भिक्खु अनुपन्नानां पापकानां अकुशलानां धम्मानां अनुपादाय चन्दं चनेति वायमति वीर्यं अरपति चित्तं पगण्हाति पदहति उपन्नानां पापकानां अकुशलानां धम्मानां पहानाय छन्दं जनेति वायमति वीर्यं अरपति चित्तं पगण्हाति पदहति अनुपन्नानां कुशलानां धम्मानां उपादाय छन्दं जनेति वायमति वीर्यं अरपति चित्तं पगण्हाति पदहति उपन्नानां कुशलानां धम्मानां तृतीया असम्मोसाय वियो भावाय विपुल्लाय भावनाय परिपूर्या छन्दं जनेति वायमति वीर्यं गारवति चित्तं पगण्हाति पदहति अयं उच्चतावुसो सम्मवायांगो कतमा चावुसो सम्मा सति इदावुसो भिक्खु कायै कायानुपस्सी विहरति अतापि संपजानो सतीमा विनय्य लोके अभिज्ञा दोमनस्सं वेदनासु वेदनानुपस्सी विहरति अतापि संपजानो सतीमा विनय्य लोके अभिज्ञा दोमनस्सं चित्ते चित्तानुपस्सी विहरति अतापि संपजानो सतीमा विनय्य लोके अभिज्ञा दोमनस्सं धम्मेषु धम्मेषु धम्मानुपस्सी विहरति अतापि संपजानो सतीमा विनय्य लोके अभिज्ञा दोमनस्सं अयं उच्चतावुसो सम्मा सति कतमो चावुसो सम्मा समाधि इदावुसो भिक्खु विविच्छेव कामे हि विविच्छा कुशले हि धम्मे हि सवितक्कं सविचारं विवेकजं पीतिसुखं पटमं जानं उपसंपज्य विहरति वितक्क विचाराणां उपसमा अज्जत्तं संपसादानां चेतसो एको विभावं अवितक्कं अविचारं समाधिजं पीतिसुखं द्वितीयं जानं उपसंपज्य विहरति पीतिया च विरागा उपेक्षको च विहरति सतो च संपजानो सुखं च कायेन पटिसंवेदेति यन्तं गर्या चिक्कन्ति उपेक्षको सतिमा सुखविहारीति तत्यं ज्ञानं उपसंपज्य विहरति सुखस्य चापहाना दुःखस्य चापहाना पुब्बे वा सोमनस्य दोमनस्सानां अट्टंगमा दुःखं असुखं उपेक्षा सति परिशुद्धिं चतुर्थ जानं उपसंपज्य विहरति अयं उच्चतावुसो सम्मा समाधि इदं उच्चतावुसो दुःख निरोधगामिनी पटिपदा आर्य सत्यं तथागतेनावुसो अर्हता सम्मा संबुद्धेन वाराणस्यं दिशिपटने मिगदाये अनुत्तरं धम्मचक्रं कुवत्तिटं अपटिवत्यं समनेन वा ब्राह्मणेन वा देवेन वा मारेण वा ब्रह्मणा वा केनचिवा लोकस्मिन् यदिदं इमे सं चतुर्नं गर्य सच्चानं आचिक्रणा देशना पन्यापना पट्टापना विवरणा विभजना उत्तानि कम्मन्ति इदमवोच आयस्मा सारिपुत्तो अत्तमनाते भिक्खु आयस्मतो सारिपुत्तस्य भासितं अभिनन्दन्ति एतेन सच्चवज्जेन सोतिनो होतु सम्पदा एतेन सच्चवज्जेन होतु नो जयमङ्गलम् एतेन सच्चवज्जेन पातु नो रतनत्रयं सबित्यो विवज्जन्तु सब्बरोगो विनश्यतु माते भवतन्तरायो सुखी दीर्घायुको भवतु सब्बमङ्गलं रक्षन्तु सब्बदेवता सब्बबुद्धानुभावेन सब्बधम्मानुभावेन सब्बसङ्घानुभावेन सदा स्वस्ति भवन्तु ते। Imina punyakam hena mame bala samagamo satang samagamo hotu yavan apattiya idang me punyakamang asava kayang vahang hotu sabbadukka pamucchatu nibbana sampacchayo hotu. Sadhu, 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 sadhu. So this today's chanting is the discourse that we chanted today is Satya Vibhanga. Satya Vibhanga means what? Satya means truth, Satya. Satya, the Pali version of Satya is Satya. Vibhanga means like Vibhajana, like dividing, dissecting, analyzing. So analyzing the truth. So that is this Satya Vibhanga Sutra. The discourse on the analysis of truth. What truth that we are analyzing here? What truth Buddha analyzed here? Or his great disciple Sariputta. So it is actually a discourse given by both Buddha and Sariputta. First half of the sutta, or little less than half of the sutta, is given by Buddha, and the rest is given by his great disciple Sariputta, his first chief disciple Sariputta. So when Buddha was talking to some monks, so of course, just like in the first sutra, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra, after his enlightenment, Buddha gave his first sutra, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. So he summarized the Four Noble Truths in that sutra. He explained, in the first time he explained the Four Noble Truths to the 5 disciples in Varanasi. The first sutra that many of you might remember, which we started this Vasa by chanting that first sutra, Dhammacakkappavattana Sutra. The sutra that has started presenting this Dhamma, the true Dhamma to the world, the truth, the liberating truth, the truth that liberates the people, that has been given by Buddha. And the wheel of Dhamma started rolling. Wheel of truth started rolling. The wheel of liberation started rolling. So what is that truth? The Four Noble Truths is the truth that we are talking about here. So what is that we are analyzing? We are analyzing these Four Noble Truths. Four Noble Truths is the truth. Here always when we talk about truth, it's always the Four Noble Truths, because they are noble truths. What is noble truth? The truth which is having that nobility. What is that nobility? That will liberate the mind, that will free the mind, that will reduce the suffering, and that will take you towards Nibbana. That kind of truth is called the noble truth. There are so many truths in the world. People, they talk so much about truth. But if the truth is not liberating truth, then it's not of much use. So the actual truth, the actual definition of truth is the truth that liberates you. The Four Noble Truths that liberates you, that is the actual truth. So when Buddha started giving the importance of these Four Noble Truths, he just simply gave the summary of these truths. This is Dukkha Satya. This is the first noble truth about the Dukkha. There is the presence of Dukkha in this world. The second noble truth, Dukkha Samudaya Satya. There is cause, there is a reason. Dukkha is there in this world not because of, any reason. There is a reason behind this suffering that we are undergoing. The people, the beings, and the world. There is Dukkha in this world because of the reasons that we have created. We are suffering because we have created the reasons, the causes for our Dukkha. And there is cause. Without cause, nothing arises. Without cause, without seed, there is no tree, there is no plant. The same way, without cause, there is no suffering. We created the cause in our minds and we created the suffering. So that is the second truth. So our craving is our cause of suffering. And the third noble truth is, one need not be upset that, oh, always we have to say worry about the cause of suffering and the suffering. One need not stay there. One need not say disappointed by this suffering and cause of suffering. The opposite is also there. One can come out of suffering also. One can enter into this cycle of happiness also. That is the cessation of suffering. Dukkha nirodha. Nirodha means cessation. So you can cessate, you can just annihilate, then you can remove, you can uh, say you can vanquish, you can just remove suffering. That's also possible. So that gives you the hope. That is actually the third noble truth. But there are different ways and means to annihilate the suffering. So in that way, Buddha gives assurance that suffering is there. At the same time, it's opposite. It's annihilation. It's removal. That is, happiness is also there. Peace is also there. Freedom is also there. And again, there is the fourth noble truth is Dukkha Nirodha Gamini Patipada Arya Satya. The way to remove the suffering, the very authoritative way to remove the suffering, that is also there. The causes, the ways and means to remove the suffering, that is also there. In that way, Buddha has given the assurance. And these four things, they constitute the four noble truths. And in that way, Buddha just gave the summary of these four noble truths. And then he started again prizing the first two chief disciples of Buddha, the two chief disciples of Buddha, Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Moggallana. He started prizing. They are very good in propounding, and in elaborating these four noble truths. This Venerable Sariputta, the first chief disciple, he is like a mother. He will take care of you by giving these four noble truths in an authoritative way. You please serve him. You just request him. You just serve him. You just please him. Then he will elaborate the four noble truths. In the same way, Moggallana is like the nurse. After giving birth to the baby, the nurse will take care of the baby. So in that way, you surrender or you just serve this Moggallana also, the second chief disciple. He will elaborate, again he will elaborate, and he will help you to come out of any doubts or queries. And in that way, both of them, they will help you to become Aryas, the liberated ones. This Sariputta, he will help you to understand the four noble truths, and thus he will help you to become a Sotapanna, the stream enterer. You can enter into the stream of Nibbana, the first speck of Nibbana, the first glimpse of the Nibbana you can see by listening to this this Sariputta. He will become Sotapanna. And then this Moggallana, he will help you to understand in deep about the ways and means to achieve absolute liberation. He will help you to become Sagadagami, Anagami, Arahant. That means the other three stages of becoming a completely enlightened person, liberated person, that is Arahant. The second stage is Sagadagami, the third stage is Anagami, and the last stage is Arahant. This Moggallana will help you to become an Arahant also. He will set up on this first stage, that is stream entry. You can achieve with the help of Sariputta, from Anariya to Arya, from ignoble to noble, from ignobility to nobility, you will get by the teachings of this Sariputta, and you will become completely enlightened, completely liberated by passing through other three stages, Sagadagami, Anagami, and Arahant. So that can be achieved with the help of Moggallana. You serve these two great chief disciples of mine, and they are very special, they're very motherly, and they will take care of you like anything. And at the same time, with a lot of wisdom and compassion, they will teach you, and you will be liberated. By the time I think Buddha, I became a little old also, it seems. And he wanted to transfer the responsibility of teaching to two of his chief disciples, is Sariputta Bhante and Venerable Sariputta and Venerable Moggallana. And after that, Buddha, he took the leave of the assembly and he went back to his resting room. Then Venerable Sariputta, he started addressing to the assembly, the group of people. Then he started elaborating the Four Noble Truths. What is the first noble truth? Jati pi dukkha, jara pi dukkha, vyadhi pi dukkha. Jati means like the birth. Birth is suffering. How birth is suffering? He started explaining. And then jara, how old age? Jara means old age is suffering. Vyadhi, disease is suffering. How disease is suffering? Old age is suffering. Maranam pi dukkha, how death is suffering. Then apiyehi sampayoga dukkha, whatever you don't like, but you have to be in association with the people whom you don't like, that is dukkha. Then piyehi vipayoga dukkha, so you like some people but you have to dissociate from them, that is also dukkha. Yam pichang nalabati tampi dukkha, whatever you wish you don't get it, that is dukkha. And then sankirtena panchupadana kanda dukkha. In brief, sankirtena means in brief, panchupadana kanda, 5 clinging aggregates, the aggregate of body. We are always clinging to the body, that creates a lot of dukkha. And then the 4 aggregates of the mind that you have learned in all the 3 levels. Your vijnana kanda, your consciousness, awareness, your vedana, your feeling, and then your reacting mind, your sankara, and then your perception mind, your say sanya. So these 4 faculties of the mind, 4 aggregates of the mind, we are always clinging to these things, and they create dukkha. That very clinging is dukkha. In that way, he explains this dukkha also, the first noble truth. In the same way, he explains the second noble truth also, that 3 kinds of tanaha, kama tanaha, bhava tanaha, vibhava tanaha, how they become dukkha. And on the third noble truth also, he explains, he elaborates. And the fourth noble truth also, he explains and he elaborates. Like your samma ditti, samma sankappo, samma vacha, samma kammanto, the 8 factors, the 8 limbs of the fourth noble truth. So it's also called Noble Eightfold Path, or the middle path. The 8 limbs of this Noble Eightfold Path, starting from samma ditti to samma samadhi. He explains, he elaborates. Samma samadhi, the 4 deep absorptions. Before samma samadhi, there is samma sati, samma 4 kinds of mindfulness that you have learned in your level 1, level 2, level 3 courses. And of course, samma vayama, right efforts, samma kammanta, samma ajiva, the right livelihood, the right professions, the right actions, the right speech, all these things he explains, he elaborates. After listening to that, many of them, they became happy and they started appreciating this Sariputta Bhante. So that is what is this Satya Vibhanga Sutta. So explaining the truth, analyzing the truth, Vibhajana means like dissecting, dividing and analyzing the truth, is done by this Venerable Sariputta. So when Buddha explained the 4 noble truths in brief, he analyzed, he elaborated these 4 noble truths, and he made the things very easy for the disciples, other disciples. So that's how it's called Satya Vibhanga Sutta, the analysis of the truth, the analysis of the 4 noble truths. That is this Satya Vibhanga Sutra. So now we'll take up the next very important discourse, that is Brahma Jala Sutta. Brahma Jala Sutta, this is the first sutra in the Digha Nikaya. Digha Nikaya is the compendium of the long discourses. Buddha has given very long discourses, and those long discourses, they were pulled together, and that scripture is called Digha Nikaya. The discourses, the long discourses. So that compendium is called Digha Nikaya. The very first sutra, the very first discourse in that Digha Nikaya is your Brahma Jala Sutra. Why it is called Brahma Jala Sutra? See, the Brahma means like the very big. That is one of the meanings of Brahma. Very big, very huge. Jala means a net. The net, Jala, In Hindi also it is there, Jala. In Telugu, Kannada, in all languages it is there. Jala means net, the net of, the very big net of wrong views. The world is stuck in lot of wrong views, hundreds, thousands of wrong views. But all of them, they can be classified into 52 kinds, 62 kinds of wrong views. There are 62 major kinds of wrong views. If we understand these 62 major wrong views, then we can easily understand what is right view. As the very organization is the Right View organization, the Center for Right View Meditations, or Right View and Right View Meditations. Understanding right view is the crucial if you want to progress in this path of freeing the mind. So with that vision, with that idea, we have started this, and we try to understand right view in different ways. But this understanding the different kinds of wrong views and keeping away the different kinds of wrong views is an authoritative way of understanding the right views. Is it not? In science also, that's what they do. So they start with the hypothesis and they prove that hypothesis as wrong, and then they will stick on to the right hypothesis, the actual truth. So we have to start something as the wrong thing, and you have to prove that wrong thing as wrong. Then you will appreciate what is right. Is it not? In science also, that's what they do. So in the same way here, if you understand what is wrong view, what are the different kinds of wrong view, how they become wrong view, how they lead to suffering, then how to keep away those wrong views, then automatically you enter into the field of right view, domain of right view. So that's the one more approach. So understanding the wrong views, keeping away the wrong views is the way to understand the right view and cultivating the right view. So that approach also we will take up today. Many of you are ready for this all over the world. I have seen the masters, they don't teach the Brahmajala Sutta. I have not heard of the monks or the masters giving the discourses on Brahmajala Sutta. The main reason is people, they don't understand this. That is the idea. Many monks, many masters, many scholars, they don't give discourse of this wrong views. But now, after all, our organization is the Right View organization, and you are working on this right view from past several months. Some of you are from past several years. Now I have taken this, I'm dared to take up this decision because I'm confident that you can definitely understand this Brahmajala Sutta. And it's a very long discourse. Maybe the whole year we can explain this, we can discuss about this. All the 52 weeks, 52 Sundays, one can explain this Brahmajala Sutta. It is very, very long. And of course, we can concise it, and we can maybe in 3-4 weeks or some 5-6 weeks, we can cover this Brahmajala Sutta. And also, of course, it is very interesting because those who are very serious into this path of right view liberation of the mind, those who are very much interested and develop this right wisdom, and thereby develop this authoritative right way of liberating the mind, then definitely this will be of great use to you. And at the same time, it gives immense joy and pleasure, joy and happiness of you are entering into an authoritative right view. So with keeping these things in the mind, I have decided to take up this Brahmajala Sutta. And of course, it's quite simple. The starting and all, it's very, very simple. Because you are into this 4 faculties of the mind, you have understood, and you are working on purifying these 4 faculties of the mind. And for you, of course, definitely it will be relatively easy to understand this different 62 kinds of wrong view. And the 20 kinds of wrong view you have already understood in our different levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. See, the 4 faculties of the mind, people stick on to these 4 faculties of the mind as me or my soul, something like that. For example, Vijnana, consciousness. So you remember this, all of you remember this. So there are four faculties. The first one is consciousness. So we have learned so many meditations to develop our consciousness, our awareness. We practiced mind-body coordination. We practiced the five sense awareness meditations, so many meditations through the five senses. We can develop our awareness, our consciousness. So many people in the world of the time of Buddha and even now, even today, they stick on to this consciousness as soul. This is permanent. In that way, they stick on. They relate the soul as consciousness or the consciousness as soul. Or they think this consciousness is possessing the soul, or the soul is possessing the consciousness. In that way, they relate. So in the four ways, they relate consciousness and soul. And so in the same way, your feelings, many people I have seen. I was regarding this consciousness, I'll just give you an example. I was working with one organization called Institute of Universal Consciousness. For them, consciousness is soul because they think that is permanent. And so many organizations are there in the world. So many very popular organizations are there in India, which they relate the consciousness as the soul. ISKCON, Krishna consciousness, universal consciousness, and of course all theistic organizations, they relate this consciousness and soul, or they relate the consciousness as a part of the supreme consciousness, universal consciousness. So in that way, consciousness and soul, consciousness is permanent, that is soul. That way they relate these four ways. Soul is consciousness, consciousness is soul. Soul is possessed by consciousness, consciousness is possessed by soul. In that way, they relate the consciousness with the soul as eternal, as permanent. So that is four kinds of wrong views. In the same way, your feelings, let us say love. There are some organizations, for them, love itself is permanent. Love itself is God. Love itself is soul. So again, Buddha says that is also wrong view. Your Vedana, your feeling is soul, soul is feeling. Feeling is possessed by soul, soul is possessed by feeling. Again, there are four kinds of wrong views. So 4 plus 4, 8 wrong views we have seen. 4 with regard to your awareness component, 4 with regard to your feeling component. The same way with the 4 with regard to your confidence, Atma Shakti. They say willpower as Atma Shakti. That itself they relate as Atma or soul. Your confidence itself, they relate it as soul. There are so many organizations, so many views, so many schools of thought where they relate Atma Vishwas, Atma Shakti. So they relate that confidence as the soul, Atma. Buddha says again, it is a wrong view. Confidence is soul, soul is confidence. There are two kinds of wrong view. Soul is possessed by confidence, confidence is possessed by soul. Again, there are two more. Again, total 4 wrong views with regard to your confidence, your sankara, your reacting mind. So these 12 wrong views you have already understood. And then with reacting to the perception, many people, for them, right analysis, right intelligence itself is permanent. That itself they consider it as soul. So right perception is soul, soul is right perception. They are the 2 wrong views. Again, right perception is possessed by soul, or soul is possessed by right perception. So 2 more wrong views. So total 4 wrong views with regard to your perception component of the mind. So these 4 components of the mind, in each component 4 wrong views. So total 16 wrong views you can observe in the world. People have these different kinds of wrong views with these 4 different components of the mind. For some people, consciousness, awareness itself is soul, permanent, shashvata, eternal. For some people, the love, compassion itself is soul, eternal, that they think it is eternal or God or soul. For people, the confidence itself is, so many theistic, like say, for them, confidently, Atma Sthairya, Atma Shakti, Atma Vishwas. In that way, they promote this, motivate this confidence, and they term it as God. They call it as soul, just to motivate people to go and kill and to destroy something or to conquer something. So the soul is the seat of your this confidence. You are God. You have this soul that is full of confidence, just to motivate many theistic groups, schools of they simply motivate that confidence. They build that confidence. They equate that confidence with the God and soul, so that people can, with complete vigor and complete enthusiasm, they're going to go and fulfill the task. But again, it is a wrong view. And understanding also is not absolute, it's not final, it's not soul. So in that way, the 16 wrong views with these 4 faculties of the mind, in each faculty there are four wrong views. So those are the 16 wrong views. And again, 4 more wrong views are with the body. For many people, body itself is soul. Body itself, they think it as permanent and soul. And again, body is possessed by soul. So there are 2 more. Soul is possessed by body, body is possessed by soul. Soul is body, body is the soul. So again, with regard to body, there are 4 wrong views. So total 20 wrong views are already you have learned directly or indirectly, knowingly or unknowingly. So these are the 20 kinds of wrong views. In the same way, there are remaining 42 kinds of wrong views, but Buddha has classified these wrong views in a different way. So that is explained in this Brahmajala Sutta that we will see now. So these are the wrong views. Wrong views means there are 2 major groups of wrong views. One is with regard to soul and supreme soul, which is permanent. We relate these different components of the mind, the body as soul and supreme soul and a permanent, and we relate these body or these senses. They are final, they are absolute. There's nothing like rebirth, there is nothing like different planes of existence. So we are stuck with only the senses and the body, or these atheistic views, nihilistic views. Nihilism means like after body, everything will be destroyed. Everything will go away. Body is ultimate. Body and the senses are ultimate. That kind of nihilistic views is one extreme wrong view. And the eternalistic views, or the saswata, or the permanent views, or the permanence, the views on permanence, like soul, the concept of soul, and all these things. Those things will come under these extreme soul-centered views. And the other extreme is only the senses and the sensual pleasures of the body, sticking on to these things. And after the death of this body, there's nothing, everything will go away. They will not focus on the mind. How the mind, by understanding the mind, one can understand the rebirths, one can understand how the flow of this consciousness happen, how these different planes of existence are there. Those things the people won't understand by sticking on to the mind purification and working on the mind. And at the same time, these nihilistic views, the people with nihilistic views, like only the senses, the bodily senses are ultimate, so enjoy and die, that's it, there is nothing like rebirth. So that kind of nihilistic views also extreme views. So all these 62 views, they can be grouped, they can be classified in these 2 major classes, 2 major generic groups: the nihilistic or atheistic views, or theistic or eternalistic views. Eternal or theistic views are one group of wrong views. Atheistic or nihilistic views are another group of wrong views. So between these 2, there is something called mind-centered approach, where one has to work on the mind, then it becomes the right view. So avoiding these 2 extreme wrong views is the way to enter into the right views. So this is the summary of the wrong views that I have given you, so that you are ready for understanding the Brahmajala Sutta. The vicious cycle, the great vicious cycle of the wrong views. Now we are penetrating into this vicious cycle of wrong views. This is very, very, very profound teaching. If you are successful in understanding this, then definitely you will appreciate, understand, and stick on to these right views, stick on to this development of the mind, stick on to this purification of the mind that we have started from level 1, level 2, level 3, and of course in level 4, level 5. Then no force on this earth will disturb you, will pull you, will trap you into the wrong views. Once you are safe, once you are protected by this right view, once you are saved from the wrong views and protected by the right view, then your safety is assured, your progress is assured, your liberation is assured sooner or later. So that is the importance, that is the greatness, that is the importance of right views. Understanding right views, practicing right view meditations, it becomes an integral part of your life. You will not go off track. You will stick on to this right track. So with that confidence, with that understanding, I have decided to take up this Brahmajala Sutta, just some 10 minutes at least. We start this Brahmajala Sutta. Then maybe in the next week, we'll continue with this Brahmajala Sutta. So the background, how it starts, once Buddha with his retinue of monks, disciples, some 500 disciples, they started the journey from Rajagiha to Nalanda. Some of you might have visited Bihar, Bodh Gaya. Near Bodh Gaya, maybe some 20-30 kilometers or maybe some 40 kilometers from Bodh Gaya. This Rajgir and Nalanda, both of them are the holy places. Now they considered as pilgrimage places, holy places. In Nalanda, of course, this Venerable Sariputta's birthplace was Nalanda, and later they built one very famous university, and now also they have again rebuilt that university, and it was a very great learning center, Nalanda. And Rajagiha is the place where Buddha stayed so many years, more than 9 to 10 years after his enlightenment. So he came back to this Magadha kingdom, where the king Bimbisara was the ruler. He requested Buddha to stay in this Rajagiha. He built some viharas there, and he requested Buddha to stay in Rajagiha. So Rajagiha to Nalanda, when Buddha started traveling with his retinue of 500 disciples. So there, one more group also joined them. So they were the group of, say, some wanderers. Wanderers means like nowadays also you can see some ascetics, some wanderers having their own views, having their own gurus, having their own organizations. They too have left their houses. They were not sticking on to their houses. They have left they became wanderers. And they were seeking truth. They were seeking liberation with their own views. The guru's name, the teacher of that group, his name was Suppiya, and he was having one very good disciple, very famous disciple. His name was Brahmadatta. So this Suppiya and Brahmadatta, with that group of wanderers, they were also walking, they were also traveling. They also joined this Buddha's retinue, Suppiya and Brahmadatta. So when they started traveling from Rajagiha to Nalanda, there was a conversation between this Suppiya and Brahmadatta. Suppiya, the teacher, Brahmadatta, the disciple. So they were actually discussing about Buddha and his teachings. Buddha and his teachings, that is Dhamma, and his group of disciples, the liberated disciples, the Sangha. And this Suppiya was condemning, he was despising, he was condemning Buddha and his teachings, and also his retinue of disciples. Whereas Brahmadatta, he was prizing, he was appreciating, he was, glorifying, he was showing a lot of respect to Buddha and his teachings and his group of liberated disciples. So in that way, the disciples of Buddha and Buddha, they were simply listening to their discussion. They didn't react to what they were discussing. And there was one place called Ambalatika between these two cities, this Rajagiha and Nalanda. There was one place called Ambalatika. There was one royal guest house. So when it became evening, the Buddha decided to stay in that royal guest house. And of course, the Suppiya and Brahmadatta and their group also, they decided to stay in the royal guest house. So they spent the night in the royal guest house. Early morning, there was one assembly hall. So the Buddha's disciples, they were discussing about how magnificent it is. In the same group, the teacher was despising Buddha, Dhamma, and his Sangha, and his renowned disciple, his first chief disciple, Brahmadatta, he was praising Buddha, Dhamma, and his Sangha. It is very magnificent. It is very special to listen to their discussion, one praising, one despising the Buddha and his teachings and his disciples. In that way, they were discussing in the assembly hall. When Buddha entered into that assembly hall, everybody, they stopped discussing and they kept silent. And Buddha asked them what you were discussing, what they were discussing, and they replied that we were discussing about how this Supriya and Brahmadatta, though they are in the same group, same organization, and the leaders of that group, one is the teacher, other one is the chief disciple. So how they were having different views on Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, that we were discussing. Then Buddha said, yes, that is fine. That is absolutely perfect. That's how the world is. But you should not react to that kind of prizing or despising. When somebody prizes Buddha and somebody prizes Dhamma or Sangha, you should not react to it. You should simply analyze it. Yes, what you have said, why you are prizing Buddha is correct, because these are the qualities of Buddha, these are the qualities of Dhamma, these are the qualities of Sangha. You should not be jubilant, you should not be, say, over enthusiastic. You should maintain that calmness, maintain that equanimity, and you should simply analyze the things and prove that why they are prizing Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha is correct, is absolutely perfect. When somebody is despising, again, you should not be upset. You should not become angry. You should not lose your senses. Again, you should understand why they are despising and why the despising is wrong. And you should disprove that the despising is of no sense. There is no meaning in that. That way, you should maintain that equanimity when you are prized or when you are despised, when you are condemned, when you are blamed. In that way, Buddha taught them about how to react to this kind of people. Of course, that you can experience everywhere. So for every person, there is nothing like he will always get friends. Always, generally it will be 50-50. If you get 50 friends, you will get 50 enemies also. If 50 people like you, 50 people will oppose you, will blame you, will tease you. That's how the world is. That is so. But if you're an equanimous, wise person, a compassionate person, you will take up these things, both prizing and blaming, in the same way, in the same non-reactive way. You will not be upset, or you will not be jubilant for teasing and prizing. And it's not just keeping equanimous, you will be analytical also. If somebody prizes you, you should correctly analyze why that prize is of some sense. If somebody teases you, you should analyze it, whether there is some sense in what they are saying, in what they are despising. So that kind of sensibilities one should have, not just equanimity, one should have that sensibility also. So that's what is Buddha's say instruction to the disciples when some people tease you or prize you. And then how you can defend if somebody teases Buddha, let us say. Buddha explains. So if somebody teases Buddha, then you can defend. So why Buddha is not an object of being teased, how he is superior, that you can definitely prove. So then at the 3 points of Buddha Shila, you can define. So Chula Shila, the Shila at the base level. So how Buddha is perfect in his Shila, how Buddha is perfect in the basic Shila. So that Buddha explains. And then Majjhima Shila, how Buddha is superior even in the second level of moral precepts. And the Mahashila. At the final level also, how Buddha is perfect in Shila. So in that way, Buddha, if somebody teases Buddha, then you can defend how Buddha is full of virtue. So having abandoned the destruction of life, he has developed tremendous kindness, compassionate for the welfare of all beings. That is very, very superior virtue. So many masters, they promote violence. That for different reasons they promote violence. But Buddha, he promotes absolute non-violence. He has completely given up the rod and the sword, and he has completely non-violent. He is not so interested in destroying the life. So in that way, you can highlight this quality of Buddha, and in that way prove that so this quality is superior, so Buddha is superior. In that way you can prove. The same way with regard to stealing also, having abandoned taking what is not given, the recluse Gautama abstains from taking what is not given, accepting and expecting only what is given. He dwells in honesty and rectitude of heart. So once a person practices this kind of adinnadana, not taking what is not given, then he will be a very honest person. He's completely a trustworthy person. So how Buddha is an absolutely trustworthy person in that way. You highlight the qualities of Buddha, and thereby you can prove the mastery of Buddha, the superiority of Buddha. See the beauty of Buddha's logic. He never projects an individual as superior. He always projects the qualities as superior. So project these qualities of Buddha, then you project the superiority of Buddha. Then definitely anybody who is despising Buddha, he will feel ashamed of his despising. He will accept the superiority of Buddha. And in the same way, so he has given up this unchaste living. Unchaste living means like indulging in the sexual intercourse. He has given up that vulgar practice of sexual intercourse. In that way, you highlight the quality of Buddha. He has abandoned false speech. He abstains from falsehood. In that way, you highlight the quality of Buddha. He abandoned slander. He does not repeat elsewhere what he has heard here in order to divide others from the people here, nor does he repeat here what he has heard elsewhere in order to divide these from the people there. This is called backbiting, divisive talk, talking something about the other person or talking about this person with some other person, so that some kind of rift is created between these people. That is called divisive talk or backbiting. Buddha is free from all these kind of backbiting. So in that way, you highlight this quality of Buddha, thereby people will develop faith in Buddha and they appreciate the Buddha. That is the best way to say defend Buddha. In that way, Buddha is highlighting the qualities of the Buddhas, all Buddhas. Thus, he is a reconciler of those who are divided and a promoter of friendships. He never create any rift, rather he reconciles. He brings the unity among the people. He brings friendship among the people. Rejoicing, delighting, and exulting in concord, he speaks only words that are conducive to concord. Concord means like that closeness, that togetherness, that friendliness. Always he talks about the friendliness, no divisiveness. That is the quality of Buddha. Having abandoned harsh speech, the recluse Gautama abstains from harsh speech. He speaks only such words as gentle, pleasing to the ear, endearing, going to the heart, urbane, very civilized. Urbane means very civilized, amiable, and agreeable to many people. He never talks about some harsh speech, some uncivilized speech. Whatever he speaks is very gentle, very pleasing to the ear, very endearing. In that way, he talks about one more quality of speech, right speech. That is not speaking harsh speech, but talking some endearing words, endearing speech. And then he having abandoned idle chatter, like gossiping. So the recluse Gautama abstains from idle chatter. He speaks at the right time, speaks what is factual, speaks on the good, on the Dhamma, and the discipline. His words are worth treasuring. They are timely, backed by reason, definite, and connected with the good. Always there is an objective behind speaking. He won't speak some unnecessary things, some gossip. So he won't indulge in gossiping. He won't indulge in idle speech. There's a purpose in whatever he speaks. And what is the purpose? Liberating the people, purifying, motivating the people towards liberation and purification of the mind. So in that way also you can promote, you should promote the Buddha. By promoting the qualities of the Buddha, you can promote Buddha, you can defend Buddha. If somebody despises Buddha, the best way is to promote or to make people understand the qualities of Buddha. Then they will definitely appreciate and praise Buddha. In that way, Buddha is highlighting, promoting the qualities of the Buddhas, not just an individual. So in that way, Buddha again says how he is non-violent even to the plant life also. The recluse Gautama abstains from damaging seed and plant life. He eats only in one part of the day, refraining from food at night and from eating at improper times. He won't eat unnecessarily. He won't damage the trees and the seeds. He abstains from dancing, singing, instrumental music, and witnessing unsuitable shows. So in that way, just highlight the qualities of Buddha. That is good enough. No, that comes in the Chula Shila, in the talk on wanderers, Paribhajak. Okay, now this is very long. So here we will conclude because it's time, and as I told you, it is a very, very long discourse. Here, when somebody talks about, talks ill about Buddha and his teachings, the best way to defend them is to highlight the qualities of Buddha, Dhamma, and his Sangha. That is the point number one. Okay. And the Shila, practicing Shila is also right view. Having faith in Shila and also having faith in generosity, giving and practicing morality and generosity. Having faith in this is also right view. Why? Because everything in this existence happens based on this law of action and reaction. Whatever you give, you get back. So if you practice non-killing, you will not be killed. If you kill, you will be killed. If you steal, somebody will steal from you. If you cheat, somebody will cheat you. So this is a simple law. So based on this, Shila is designed. Based on this generosity, Dana is also designed. Whatever you give, it will not go waste. It will come to you. It will come back to you in the right time. Then you definitely need it. In all possible ways, it will come back to you. That is the power of giving. That is the power of morality. So in that way, Buddha encouraging the disciples to follow this path of Shila and Dana. And again, he comes to the different levels of Shila. And then again, he starts talking about the 62 kinds of wrong view also. So in that way, this Brahmajala Sutta, it talks about how by practicing some of these Punya Kriyas, one will learn the right view. So as I used to explain about the 10 Punya Kriyas, Dana, Shila, Bhavana, Apachayana, Vayavaccha, respecting the respectables, serving, listening to Dhamma, asking questions, discussing, all these things, how they will straighten your right view. Those things we have seen. And in addition to that, the 62 right views, 62 wrong views that one should avoid so that one can enter into the path of right view, that also we will take up. So in the beginning, we have seen the 20 kinds of wrong view based on our understanding of the 4 faculties of the mind and the body. Body is 1 faculty, 4 faculties of the mind, total 5 faculties. So each faculty, some people consider it as me or mine, that is my soul. Those things, of course, I have told you just to give you an idea of why this concept of soul comes. Again, Buddha gives 4 wrong views based on the Sasvatavada. Sasvata means like eternalism. Eternalism means like this soul-centeredness. So some people, they meditate, they develop some powers. It's not exactly power, because of the purification of the mind, they can see their previous lives. Then they think, oh, one life to another life, I am moving. So this is soul, which is moving from one life to other life. So in that way, they think it as soul is permanent. Buddha says that is one wrong view. The same way, it's not just a few past lives. Even the earth also will collapse. It's called an eon, one kalpa, and the new earth will again reborn. So your mind becomes so sharp, so pure, you can recollect the previous lives in the previous kalpa also, in the previous earth also. So then you will think that, oh, these things will change, earth will change, but the soul will remain. So this is permanent. In that way, some people will deduce, they will infer, but again, that is wrong view. For some people, it is not just one kalpa, it is several kalpas, millions and millions of kalpas. They see only the beings will die and perish, and the earth also die and perish, but something will remain permanent. That's how they conclude because of imperfect observation. So those people, they conclude that, so the soul which is permanent, but that is also wrong view. And then some people, they analyze, they think, they logically they think, oh, this is how it happens, and they listen to their teachers, their masters, their scriptures, and they deduce that the soul will remain permanent, it will move from one life to other life, and they stick on to these soul-centered views, which are the eternalistic views or the theistic views, and they develop this kind of wrong view. So in that way, the first four levels of wrong views, the first four kinds of wrong views, 1 to 4, we have learned. Then 5 to 62 wrong views, we will see in the next discourse, next Sunday discourse. That way, Buddha started explaining why different kinds of people develop different kinds of wrong views. The first four kinds of wrong views, based on their meditation, even the great wise meditators also, because they won't reach the ultimate meditative superiority by reaching nibbana. They could recollect their previous lives, past lives. Because once you recollect the past lives, something moves from one life to other life. That should be the soul. So they stick on to that permanent soul idea. At three levels, Buddha explains how this soul transfers from one life to other life. They think it as soul, but it is not soul, it is again the mind. It is again mind centered. It is your awareness. It again, the consciousness moves and it goes and comes, something like that. Like a stream, as I used to give the example of the flow of the waves. One wave will push the other wave. The previous wave is not the same as the present wave. A part of it is there, but so many other factors also are responsible for the second wave. The same way, the mind is playing this game. It is not the game of soul or game of the Krishna Lila or the Ishvara or Kudaka Kel. So many ways they say this is all Klesha Lila. Klesha means like your defilements. Your defilements only will push you from one life to other life. It is not your soul that will push you. When the defilements become zero, you will get Nibbana. That pushing will stop. So in that way, Buddha could rectify the doubt about these previous lives, not taking the concept of soul, just by taking the concept of mind only, or these defilements only, or the klesha. Defilements means klesha. Klesha means your own greed, your own hatred, your own delusion. That will push you from one life to another life. It is not the soul that is moved from one life to another life. It is your defilements only that will move from one life to another life. Because of wrong observation, many people, many meditators, they deduce, they infer that it is the soul that has moved from one life to another life in my previous lives. In that way they deduce. So at the four levels, people will think that the soul has moved from one life to another life based on their intensity of meditation. If you are a very great meditator, you can see the different kalpas, hundreds and millions of kalpas, means like the earth's evolved, earth's destroyed, but still this mind is moving from one life to another life. Then only one or two kalpas one can see. For some people, for some meditators, they can see only a few lives in only one kalpa. All of them, they deduce that, oh, it is the soul that is permanent. That because of that, we are moving from one life to another life. But that is wrong view. The right view is, the right view is our defilements only are pushing us from one life to another life. So in that way, Buddha can differentiate the right view and wrong view based on this. observation of previous lives. And some people, though they don't have the experience of previous lives, but they listen to their teachers, the scriptures, and using their logical power, they deduce that, yeah, the soul will move from one life to another life. But that is again a wrong logic, wrong analysis, wrong judging, wrong interpretation. So that kind of wrong interpretation leads to wrong views, wrong observation, imperfect observation of your previous lives also lead to wrong views. But the right view is, it is only our defilements that will push us from one life to another life. So these are the first four wrong views. From fifth wrong view to 62 wrong view, we will see in the future classes. Okay, I think you can understand, you can comprehend these things. This is not very difficult. The base statement is, don't fall into the trap of this eternalism, permanence, which is soul and supreme soul, this kind of ideas. At the same time, don't follow the very shallow, superficial, body-centered, sensuality-centered life also. After this body and sensual pleasures, everything will go away, vanish. No, mind will be there, the mental defilements will be there. That will take the new body. That will again, you will start this journey of suffering, taking new bodies, because these defilements, they will be carried in the mind. These defilements will again create more suffering in the future lives. So understanding the defilements, purifying the defilements is the way to purify the mind. Once these defilements are removed and the mind is purified, then this journey will stop. This key concept, if you understand, then you don't fall into these extreme views of body-centeredness or soul-centeredness. You will stick on to this in between or this mind-centered approach. Okay, so that is about the different wrong views and right views. Of course, we'll start discussing the other wrong views in detail in the subsequently in the future classes. And as usual, if you have some questions, you can ask questions and then we'll conclude. As a as a teacher, my duty is to, especially after going through so many views, so many organizations, so many masters, so I have realized that this is my duty, this is my responsibility to teach this right view and right view meditations, because this is again a long journey, learning different dimensions of right view. Just like there are 62 wrong views, you can understand right views also through its different dimensions. And again, right view meditations also, hundreds of meditations. You have to understand correctly. Though it is very challenging, because the whole world, multitude of masters and organizations, they are trapping the individual minds into the wrong views. So in this mess of wrong views, this world is a great mess of wrong views. So to understand right views and practice right views, teach and progress in right views is a challenge. But I'm deriving what immense joy, though it may take some time, I never mind. So that very path is so fascinating, so challenging, so liberating, so purifying. Sooner or later, so there is no hurry. Slowly, one can definitely progress in this. One can penetrate into these different dimensions, different aspects of right view. One can definitely penetrate into wrong view on the different dimensions and different kinds of wrong view. And that absolute clarity you will get. This is wrong view. These are the different ways and means of wrong view. This I should avoid. This is a right view. These are the different ways and means to cultivate right view. This I should develop. That kind of complete clarity and wisdom you will get. Just like I used to explain the Four Noble Truths. This is suffering. This is the cause of suffering. This I should avoid. This is happiness. This is the cause of happiness. This I should cultivate. That's what we learned about the Four Noble Truths. The same way with regard to right view and wrong view also should develop the clarity. These are the wrong views. These are the different means and ways of entering into wrong views. This I should avoid. These are the right views. These are the different ways and means to cultivate the right views. This I should cultivate. This kind of clarity and discretion and wisdom, if you develop, as I told you in the beginning, no force on this earth will trap you or pull you towards the suffering. You can slowly, definitely, and authoritatively escape from suffering. Okay. Thank you. The first discourse when Buddha is celebrated the much what name we can give to this occasion. Vandami Bhanteji, do we have to believe Vastu for construction directions? Sadhu Vandami Bhanteji, we express our deepest sense of gratitude. Okay. We express our deepest sense of gratitude and respect. Keshav Kamble.
Vandami Bhanteji.
Yes, Sama.
Bhanteji, there's a group who say they are the followers of the Buddha. Sorry? And a group of chanting who say that they are the followers of the Buddha. They chant Namyo Horenge Kyo, and they say that they'll fulfill all what they desire by chanting. So is that also a wrong view?
Yes. Anything that blindly motivates you to do this without understanding. So Namo Horinge Kyo, what does it mean? Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Namo Horinge Kyo. It gives some temporary satisfaction, and it may develop some kind of faith towards some protector like Buddha. But that is very temporary, whatever satisfaction, whatever, that's like, say, like chanting any other thing, chanting Hare Ram, Hare Krishna, chanting in Islam, chanting in Christianity. They are all very temporary ways of deriving some pleasure, and later all your defilements will come back to you in multiple times. So in that way, don't get trapped into such kind of it's like something like one. Say, of course, you can see thousands of schools like this, whether it is in Buddhism or Hinduism or Christianity or Islam. Do this chanting, you will be liberated. Do this thing, Vajrayana, do this some kind of ritual. In one life, you will get absolute Nibbana, fastest way to get Nibbana. So this kind of cheap tricks, don't be trapped by these cheap tricks, because you have beautiful, tremendous minds. So all these things, all these cheap tricks will becloud your mind. It will make you to become blind followers. Oh, okay, I chant this, I'll get this. What kind of nonsense approach it is? What kind of horrible approach it is? It is to make people like animals, to make you sheep, to make you some kind of blind followers. You will become sheep simply without giving any reason to what I'm doing. If you do that, though you may like taking some intoxicants also, it may give you some temporary happiness, but it doesn't mean that it liberates you, right? All the worries, all the problems will come back in multiple times. The same thing will happen with this kind of blind chanting. Or if you chant with by giving one virtue to it, like say, I was telling about Buddha, chanting about the Buddha's name again and again. But if you remember the qualities of Buddha, he is a supreme enlightened. His mind is absolutely purified. So I have great respect in his purified mind. That's why I chant the name of Buddha. Dhamma, it is the best way to cultivate the mind, best way to purify the mind, because it will avoid the extremes. It will ask us to purify the mind based on the middle path. That way you start prizing Dhamma. Then the mind will have some impact. Mind will get some motivation, some kind of inspiration to follow this path. In that way, if you attach some kind of quality, some kind of virtue into your chanting, in addition to repeatedly chanting that particular word or syllable, if you can remember that kind of virtue also, then it will have an impact on the mind, it will purify the mind. But blindly, if you chant something without knowing its meaning, without attaching any quality or any virtue to that chanting, if you simply chant that, then you will fall into the trap of these blind beliefs. Now that is not the era. Now this 21st century, all the minds are beautiful minds. They have they have this balanced mind of these four faculties. So have some kind of virtue attached to your chanting. If it gives you some kind of happiness, okay, let me practice this for some time, 15 minutes, but I will attach this quality of Buddha or Dhamma or Sangha or some virtue. But that is again not very authoritative, not very powerful as this kind of objective meditations or right view meditations that you have, because this erases from the beginning, from the root. It will destroy the root of wrong views, root of blind beliefs, this kind of approach. Then there is no looking back. I have seen this kind of chant in so many Buddhist organizations also, like other non-Buddhist organizations. But a few days they chant, they get some kind of happiness, then they give it up, because they don't attach the meaning to it, they don't attach the quality to it, they don't attach the virtue to it. Just like any other pleasure, they derive some pleasure in this, and after a few days they give it up. It will not work on defilement level. It will not hit your defilements. If you give meaning to it, virtue to it, value to it, quality to the particular chanting, and if it is hitting your defilements, then only it is right. Then only it is an authoritative way to purify the mind. Otherwise, it is one blind belief. It may intoxicate you for a few seconds, a few minutes, and that will make you to think that, oh, it is purifying, it is giving me some happiness, but it is temporary. After a few days, you will give it up. Like any other worldly pleasure, sensual pleasure, it gives you some kind of pleasure, and then you will give it up. If you want to seriously work on your defilements, seriously work on purifying the mind, and authoritatively you want to get the true freedom and liberation and purification of the mind, you should better stick on to the objective meditations, the right view meditations, the correct understanding, the four faculties of the mind. Next question.
Bhanteji. Thank you, Bhanteji.
Okay, Sukhi. Shall Vastu and all these things, astrology, it comes actually in this Brahmajala Sutta. Astrology, Vastu, and all these things. Don't give much importance to that. Understand about, says the morning sun is solar energy, it gives you some freshness. So the northeast direction, there should be some openness so that you will get some of that freshness. Don't close that. The southwest, there should be some block so that whatever solar energy you get, it will remain in your house. So have some understanding about Vastu and Maintenance little bit of vastu, but don't give so much importance. Lot of things. Do some research. Everybody has beautiful minds again. Don't blindly follow some vastu or astrologer or a vastu person or a numerologist. Anything blindness, no, that will that will make you say slave to that particular practice. Have some kind of sense, some kind of understanding. Don't give so much importance. As I used to say in many of my discourses, all these external things, they influence you very, very less than 1%. Your own mind will influence you 99%. If you work on your mind, purify your mind, if you have complete belief in this right view and right view meditations, then no need to bother much about astrology and vastu and feng shui and all these things. But still, when you are constructing a new house, what you can do, just see that in the northeast and all there should be some opening, and in the southwest there should be some closure. That's it. This is the advice I can give you regarding vastu. Okay. If you have any questions in this right views and wrong views, you can ask. We will conclude. Okay, so we'll conclude with one small chanting. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa bhavatu sabba mangalam rakkantu sabba devata sabba buddhanubhavena sabba dhammanubhavena sabba sanghanubhavena sada sotti bhavantu te sukhi bhaveyan niddukho aham nicca aham viya idacha me sukhi hontu majjata chatavedino imam higammante dhamme satta hontu sukhi sada tato parancharajyesu chakkavale sujantano. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Sadhu, sukhi hontu.
Thank you so much, Bhanteji.
Sadhu, sadhu, sukhi hontu.
Vandami Bhanteji.
Thank you very much, Guruji. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, coordinator. Thank you all senior brothers and sisters. Thank you.